So the retribution came much faster than anyone expected. Early this morning, the Indian Air Force planes, the fighter planes Mirage 2000s, and 12 of them went and struck the terrorist camps in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is inside Pakistan and not Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, to kill at least 200 terrorists of Jaish-e-Mohammed and maybe their allied forces, and avenged the killing of 40 CRPF men in Pulwama on 14 February. I am Nitin Gohale and I am going to tell you what exactly happened in the early hours of this morning when 12 Mirage 2000s of the Indian Air Force went across the line of control, crossed the capital of Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which is Muzaffarabad, and went and struck at a place called Balakot, which had a large training camp of Jaish-e-Mohammed, which had carried out the suicide attack on the 40 CRPF men, the bus carrying 40 CRPF men on 14 February at Pulwama in Jammu and Kashmir. So the planning for this attack took place over the last 10 days or so, once Prime Minister Modi decided that it is time to strike back at Pakistan and strike hard. But one instruction that the Prime Minister had for the Indian Air Force was that the collateral damage to either common Pakistani citizens or Pakistani military installations will not take place, because the aim was not to start a war or target the military, although the Pakistani military is the one which trains, equips and supports the terrorist organizations. But India wanted to keep the threshold below a certain level where the Pakistani military will not be justified to start a conventional war, just below the threshold of a nuclear confrontation. So the Air Force started its planning. The decision was very clear that India had to strike and strike hard, and within a time frame of about a fortnight after the Pulwama attack. There were two compulsions. One, that the JeM would have emptied that camp or thinned out the population from that camp, anticipating something from India. And second, the ruling party did not want to give any chance to other political parties to say that any strike which could have taken place after, say, 5th or 10th of March would be construed as a politically loaded strike and done with elections in mind. Not that Prime Minister Modi and BJP will not use this strike to tell the people how decisive and how strong the Prime Minister is or his leadership is, but the declaration of dates of elections would have complicated matters for decision making. Therefore, there was a limited window of opportunity available to the Indian Prime Minister and his colleagues. So therefore, the Air Force was told that you prepare for an airstrike on a targeted militant camp or a terrorist camp inside Pakistan. There are two reasons for doing this. There could not have been a land action like the special forces did in Uri in September, post Uri in September 2016, because most of the higher reaches along the line of control with Pakistan are snowbound right now. So therefore, it's much more difficult to go across and strike and come back unscathed. That ruled out the land-based operations or surgical strike of the kind that took place in 2016. Number two, India did not want to target or hit terrorist camps along the LOC, in the shallow depth along the LOC inside Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because they were immediately after the Pulwama attack, they were emptied out, and there were just a bunch of small huts or a group of huts which had no high value target. So it was decided that this airstrike, which can be actually called a surgical strike, a real surgical strike, would be carried out on a high value target, high value location, where Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists train and are there in large numbers. So a precise intelligence operation was launched. Intelligence was obtained through various means: satellite photos, ground-based human intelligence, and technical intelligence by tapping phones or tracking different movements of different leadership of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and target was arrived at. There are two other smaller targets that were hit at Chakoti and one more place in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but they are not as significant as what has happened at Balakot. Remember, this is for the first time in 47 years that India has not only crossed the LOC but has gone deep inside Pakistan and struck targets at a place which normally would be deemed escalatory. But this was done, intelligence was obtained, it was clearly determined that one Yusuf Azhar, who is the brother-in-law of Masood Azhar, who is the chief of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, is head of that camp or in charge of that camp. And it was then decided that at a particular point the Indian Air Force would launch a strike packet of 12 Mirages which will go across the LOC, strike there and come back. They were of course protected by a screen provided by other aircraft like Sukhoi 30s, and there was also the support from mid-air refuelers. Also the satellite based intelligence was provided to the Mirage 2000s. They took off from the central air base in Gohale from central India and struck this camp between about 3:45 and 4 a.m. This morning, which is 26th of February, and came back within 20 minutes. Not that the Pakistani Air Force did not scramble its jets, it did scramble F-16s, but the strike package which was launched by India was far powerful for the few F-16s that were scrambled, so therefore they couldn't do any damage, they just veered off, and the Indian Air Force came back unscathed like the Special Forces in September 2016, having targeted that camp at Balakot. Now when the reports started coming in, the DG ISPR, who is spokesperson of the ISPR, the Inter-Services Public Relations of Pakistan, gave away the game by saying Indian planes came up to Muzaffarabad sector and discharged some payload at Balakot. So he actually gave away at 5:35 in the morning the location of the attack itself, and therefore it was easier for Indian government to now confirm to the world, to the entire international interlocutors who have been telling India to hold its horses, play it cool, not escalate matters, to tell them that India has done this strike. So at precisely 11:30 a.m., Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale went on air, read out a short statement saying that this is a preemptive non-military strike carried out by the Indian Air Force at Balakot, and Balakot was mentioned because it was a significant camp, and he said there's large number of casualties have taken place or fatalities have taken place in this camp, and he just stopped at that. So it was very clear that India does not want any military escalation. India is very clear it did not want to target innocent Pakistani civilians. All that it wanted to do was to target the JeM, its terrorist foot soldiers, and the leadership, clearly saying or indicating that India had intelligence reports that a few more suicide attacks were being planned by the JeM in India and especially in Jammu and Kashmir. So therefore India has called this justifiably a preemptive strike, and I think Indian diplomats are now fanning out or reaching out to their counterparts in various national capitals to brief them about what exactly happened. There is an all-party meeting which is being held by the government to brief all political parties to build a consensus about the efficacy of this action. And finally, India has factored in asymmetric escalatory or retaliatory measures that Pakistan may want to take. In my assessment, Pakistan is unlikely to launch a conventional military escalatory retaliatory strike because one, it is not capable and its economy is not in a position to sustain even a 2 or 3 day conventional war where you mobilize tanks, you mobilize the entire air force and get your units close to the international border and the line of control. What Pakistan will, however, do is to try and strike or disrupt India's election rallies, carry out terrorist strikes, try a hijack of a civilian airline or a commercial airline. All those attempts will be made in India's hinterland, in the main cities and the commercial capital or commercial big cities. All that will be attempted in retaliation by Pakistan. But my assessment at the moment, going by what's happening, there have been some angry retorts, angry statements by Pakistani foreign minister and others. But it's unlikely that Pakistan is going to launch a conventional retaliatory strike. India, of course, will have to keep its guard up. It will have to have its air defenses in place. It will have to have its intelligence agencies working to their optimum. And of course, we as citizens will have to keep our guard up to look out for any unusual movement, activity or object that might be placed in public places to create mayhem and violence. But as it seems now, Prime Minister Modi has taken a very decisive decision and an action, and the Air Force has delivered like it did in 1971, like it did in 1999 in Kargil. The Indian Air Force has dealt a body blow to the Jaish-e-Mohammed and of course to the Pakistani army's ego.